This week, the Legacy Coalition map is getting rewritten. PAPI have the hots for Goon Swarm Satios, whilst the Initiative and third parties have a thing for Test Fortizars. Brave are all in for Aquarius, Goon Swarm Sov contracts in Delve, and the Doom Clock looms again. Hello, I'm Frost, and this is your weekly EVE Online War Update. Welcome back. So first of all, let me say a big thank you for Push to Talk for inviting me on their stream a few days ago. In case you missed it, I will link it in the description below. They were super nice. We had some really interesting conversations, not just about a war, but the new player experience and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I highly recommend you give that a watch as well. Now, let's get on with stuff. So as usual, I'm going to jump up into my box. There we go. We have our dot land in front of us, thanks to Walari. I have my little pen tool like I did last time, and I'm going to show you the areas that we're going to focus on. So last week I kind of switched from doing like a weekly format to, a time-based format to a one based on regions, and I'm going to stick with regions as that seems to work quite well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the regions that we're going to be looking at. So we're going to start with Delve, Aquarius, Catch, Immensia. Actually we're going to include Curse. There we go. Do a little detour, Wicked Creek. This time we're going to include Tenerifis, Fathabolis, and we're going to go around there, and then we're going to wrap up there. So kind of looks like a little bit of a bunny rabbit now, doesn't it? Anyway, so those are the areas that we're going to cover, and we're going to go from east to west, as I think this kind of makes a lot more sense in terms of how things are developing. So let me see if I can delete that. There we go, and turn that off. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump straight in to Wicked Creek. So the first thing with Wicked Creek is the area that we're looking at is C006-K. I'm going to take my pen tool again. It's this one right here. Now, if you remember last week, Dreadbomb had the iHub for this, and so therefore there was a doom clock kind of ticking. Now, I did say it was a test keep start, and it was, but I was informed by XIX very kindly that XIX actually acquired it. And so therefore it is no longer in the test keep starts chain, it actually belongs to XIX. I tried to find out if the one in Tenerifis also belonged to XIX, but nobody kind of really knew, so I still need to check that out. But it's kind of worth noting because clearly Fire are looking to distance themselves from Legacy, and to therefore not have a Legacy keep start in one of their main regions is clearly in their benefit. But the main thing is, as you can see, is that Unreal Alliance now have control of that iHub, and so their keep start is safe. So all pretty straightforward there. And that is Wicked Creek all wrapped up. So we're going to jump back to our universe. Let me just make sure I've got my pen turned off. Okay, so next we're going to go to Curse. Now, the reason why I'm going to mention Curse, once again, it's going to be a brief one. And it is to do with, let me get my pen back up again. Let me just select that. There we go. We're going to go for OSHT-A. I have to avoid its original name, or the name that we all know it as. So there is a test keep star there. And the test keep star was had its shield timer reinforced. And the armor timer came out on Friday the 26th, I think in the early hours of the morning. But what was strange was that it wasn't reinforced. Now, I spoke to some people in the Imperium about this, and they said that potentially the timer wasn't right for them. They had other ops going on and so forth, and so therefore they didn't proceed to the armor timer. Now, that is one of two PAPI keep stars that got pushed into armor timer in this week, and we'll cover the other one a little bit later on. So once again, let me just delete that. And that is Curse, pretty much done and dusted. And we'll go back to our universe. See, I'm trying to power through it this time, as last time the video was rather long. So now we're going to get to Immensia. So Immensia is a war zone, as we know from last week. And as you can see, Fed Up has been pretty much completely cleared out of here. So has, I think it was AARP that owned these systems down here. Let me just double check. Let me click on that. Yeah, Warped Intentions. So Warped Intentions own these systems down here. They've been pushed out of there. Then we got Rosado Regnum. They've also been pushed back a lot, and we've lost a lot of territory there as well. So the thing I need to mention as well is I said last week that Combat Wombat, which is still the best name for any alliance in EVE, I thought they were Australian because clearly the name says, suggests Australian. But they're not. They're actually German. So my apologies for that. I'm going to say it in German. Das tut mir leid. Yeah, I got it wrong, and now we know that Combat Wombat are actually a German alliance. And obviously Deepwater Hooligans are still there. And funnily enough, Vindictive, are still kind of holding this pocket up the top here. Whilst if we go down to the bottom, we can see that Rosetta Regnan have been pushed right back into this one constellation down the bottom here. I think that's one constellation. Let me just double check. Yeah, so it's just one single constellation, 4MY-AB. So Immensia is not what it used to be. And this is to do with the thing that I said at the beginning, with the whole legacy move. Is we know that Federation Uprising, that's Fed Up, have already moved over to Fountain and have kind of set themselves up in just a few systems over there. Warped Intentions will come back to because that is going to be an interesting situation. Now, the other thing to be aware of with Immensia is that there were 2 Fed Up Fortizars, 2 Warped Intention Fortizars, and a Rosetta Regnan Fortizar. All of these died to these third-party alliances that I mentioned last week. So Deepwater Hooligans are very much involved with this, Combat Wombat. We've then got people like Simple Farmers. I've forgotten the others now. Obviously, the Wrecking Crew, which includes people like Dreadbomb. So the third parties have been really, really active in basically destroying the sovereignty that Legacy Coalition held in Immensia. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to Tenerifis. Now the reason why I mentioned Tenerifis is you can see Rosetta Regnan have lost a lot of territory already in Immensia, but they actually had some stuff in Tenerifis as well. So if we go down through this gate here, we can actually just jump right here. And you can see that all of this area in the northwest here is Requiem Eternal. Sorry, yes, I got them mixed up. So we've got Requiem Eternal. So Requiem Eternal have lost loads of sov. So you can see that all of these systems that are now white were Requiem Eternal. I'm having problems with my W's and my R's today. And you can see that every single system pretty much is now getting refed. So Requiem, I'm just going to say Requiem, that'll be easier, are kind of getting really pushed out of Tenerifis. Siberian Squad, funnily enough, who are now part of the Imperium, still have territory here, because clearly there's just nobody to clear them out. Vindictive, seem pretty settled. I also found out from Vindictive that if you remember last week, I mentioned that they had this territory in Detroit, and I thought that was kind of a recent thing. But I've been told that's kind of been a long-standing arrangement, and it is pretty much business as usual. But having said that, coming back to, where was I? I was in Tenerifis, there we go. Tenerifis. I can still see Vindictive, kind of moving more towards fire because they're kind of being left out on their own, as we're going to see a little bit further on as we move through the regions. So coming back to the universe, there we go, universe, click, there we go. Right, so we've covered Immensia, we've covered Tenerifis. We're now going to move down into Impasse. So Impasse, what the first thing we can see is on the left-hand side here, Brave, have completely given up on their territory in Impasse. In fact, they've actually, given up on their territory in Catch. But we'll come to that in a minute. The main thing is that their Sov is being cleared out, and this leaves Requiem Eternal, who we saw were being pushed out of Tenerifis, are now kind of being left on their own in Impasse. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Requiem Eternal, because they're going to be out here on their own, as we'll see when we come on to Estoria as well, and we kind of look at the map once we get to Estoria. You will see that basically Vindictive and Requiem Eternal are kind of out on their own. Vindictive at least are into Tenerifis and Detroit, which is kind of coming into fire territory. Fire Coalition being primarily Russian alliances like Unreal and XIX, but also includes EU and US time zones with Razor. So they kind of got some people to kind of hang out with. But Requiem Eternal, these guys look like they're pretty much being left out. Eternal Requiem, sorry, are kind of being left out to dry here. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them over the coming weeks. So that pretty much covers impasse. Before I go any further, I'm going to say very quickly, if you enjoy my videos, then please give me a like. Please subscribe to the channel. That really helps a lot. You know, subscriber count really helps for the algorithm. Obviously, leave comments. Yeah, the algorithm loves that too. We've got to feed that the god of YouTube with that algorithm. And obviously, you're welcome to join my Discord. Where we can chat about all this stuff. I have people from all alliances in my Discord, which is awesome. Lots of different opinions and lots of news that helps me build up these weekly war updates. And then finally, don't forget to mention me in your Corp Discords and your Alliance Discords so that more people know about the stuff that I'm up to. Okay, let's move on. So to the good stuff now. We're going to go on to Catch. So Catch is another one of those kind of war zones. So as you can see, as we know from last week, Brave are moving to Aquarius and they're going all in for Aquarius. And this is now being seen, as we saw from Impasse, you know, that they've given up on their territory there. And we can see now that their territory is being reft in Catch as well. So really all that leaves now in Catch are Warped Intentions. And Warped Intentions are kind of in a bit of a pickle because obviously they lost all their territory in Impasse. And in fact, if we actually bring up their stats here, you can see their sovereignty is, over the last few weeks, has taken a major dive. Now, you know, their corporations have been dropping down over the last month as well. There has been a noticeable drop in their members. Now, obviously, where these members have gone, I don't really know. This is where, you know, spin can come in. One would assume that they've gone to other bigger groups within Legacy Coalition, but I can't confirm that. But it is still worth noting that, you know, they've lost close to about 1,000 members, I would say, at a glance there, just under 1,000. You know, so I don't know whether those have gone to other places in Legacy Coalition or not. I don't actually have anybody from Warped in my Discord yet, so you know, if you are one of those people, then please come join my Discord. It'd be nice to get your input as well. But anyway, so that kind of covers that. So if we go back to our map, so we've got Warped Intentions kind of left down here. They obviously can't get any help from Tenerifis because that drops us back into Eternal Requiem, who are in a spot of bother here, as we can see. So Catch is pretty much lost. Now, the thing to mention with Catch as well is Init and the third parties have been having a field day on Test Fortizars. So 5 Test Fortizars have been lost in this week. And if I actually have one of these to show you. So here we go. So this is a Test Fortizar that died in Catch. And you can see that Tickle are involved here. That's Tactical Supremacy, who, funnily enough, used to belong to Legacy Coalition, then left, and have now come back to Catch kind of as an independent entity. So really interesting. But obviously, we've got, you know, the usual suspects. We've got Simple Farmers. We've got No Forks Given. We also have the Initiative. We've even got French Connection jumping in there as well, who are part of the Imperium. We have Good Sax, you know, who are much more active down in Estoria. So yeah, you know, all the third parties and the Initiative, or Dread Bomb as well, obviously, so Wrecking Crew, you know, they're all jumping in and working together on killing these Fortizars. So they're all being neutral to each other. In other words, they're enemies, but when they're shooting test Fortizars, then they're all buddies for the time being. So, and that is pretty much the case for all 5 of those Fortizars that have died in Catch. So, coming back to our map, the other thing that happened in Catch is a Titan died, because I always like to mention Titans dying, it's worth it. This one was an Erebus, it belonged to Test once again. It looks like it died on the undock of a Keepstar. And the thing to note here was that it was in suitcase mode. So what I mean by that is that it was clearly traveling and it was carrying loads of stuff. And in fact, the loop ferry was pretty rubbish on this one. It was only like an 8 billion drop. Especially if we go down and we look, you can see it dropped to Deimos, it dropped a Hurricane, you know, no big deal, Bifrost. A Damnation, that was pretty nice. That's a pretty good drop. Dropped a Vulture hull as well, and a Nemesis. But then when you look at the fleet hangar, it was actually, you know, just a few things dropped. And if you can see, there's loads of stuff that didn't drop. So the loot ferry wasn't nice at all. In fact, there was like 14 geckos worth 1.6 billion, which didn't make the cut. So that was, I would imagine that would have been pretty frustrating. That would have been pretty sweet. There they are, I can see them right there. There we go. So you can see 14 geckos. for a total value of 1.5 billion ISK. And no, Loot Ferries said no. But anyway, as you can see, this individual was clearly carrying all their stuff, got caught on the undock. If I scroll back up, sorry, it's a big kill now. You can see that it's the usual, once again, usual suspects. It's simple farmers. There's Tickle in there. I think, yeah, so all simple farmers actually, pretty much. So yeah, and you can see they got caught in the undock. We've got broadswords, we've got devoters, and yeah, that was that. So there you go. Then moving on, I think that's pretty much covered it for catch. So my big question now, obviously now that catch is pretty much burnt, what are the initiative going to do? Because as you remember, the initiative was set up in Curse. You can see that they took 2 systems in UTAC-Q and BTAC-3. And along with these third parties, they've been attacking the Fortizars in VTAC-3, 6X7, I think there was one in 9TAC-8 as well. So they've kind of been hanging around this area and harassing Brave. Now obviously Brave have gone, Warped Intentions have pretty much gone, Evictors have been evicted from catch. You know, the Watchman died a long time ago. There's nobody left now. So it'll be interesting to see what the Init do. I can't see them sitting around just to kill structures. That's kind of not their thing. So I would imagine they'll just leave that to the third parties to kind of clean up and set themselves up here. And so I'm going to be really, really interested to see what the initiative do next. And then we're going to move on to Estoria. So Estoria is the home of Tess. So here's Estoria right here. So if we go to Estoria, a couple of things to mention. There's kind of a soft boundary, and I'm going to draw a little thing with my marker again. There we go. And I'm going to draw a line kind of right here. So as you can see, there's kind of been a soft territory here where Estoria has been split into 2 parts, where Test has held all of this area, and kind of Bastion and Ferrata, who are part of Steinrus, and Goodsax, which is all the M's there in 0-06F. I've kind of been left to hold this area for a long time. And in fact, if I take another color, there's actually Sinojammers in, I think, going from all the way here, all the way up this pipe. And what was interesting is in 0-06F was a keepstar. So if you remember at the beginning, I mentioned there was another keepstar that got reinforced and put into armor timer, and it was actually in 0-06F. And that came out, let me double check, that came out on Friday the 26th at about 1 a.m. UTC. And I was really surprised that this one wasn't, the armor wasn't contested, and so the keepstar was left to repair. As I said, all this area was Sinojammed, and as we found out, is that Test had kind of been leaving Estoria. And so this would have been a great opportunity for them to kind of put this into a final timer, but it didn't happen. So not quite sure what went on there. You know, I'd be interested to hear from the Bastion and from people from the Imperium and leadership if they want to talk to me as to why that wasn't reinforced, because that was kind of to me a no-brainer as to you'd want to do that just for the propaganda side of things. So interesting that. Now Estoria, as I understand, and I have not been able to confirm this myself, so I can't say for absolute certain. Let me just turn that off again. But apparently, Test have been making major moves of resources out of Estoria. So we're talking Rorquals, we're talking ratting, supers, all this kind of stuff. Now, unfortunately, I was informed about this by somebody within Legacy a little bit too late, so I wasn't able to get onto one of the Keepstar chains and see it for myself, so I can't be 100% certain. So what I would say is take that with a grain of salt until a pinch of salt till I know more. But what we can do is I have taken a snapshot of the ADMs. So as you can see at the moment, the ADMs are pretty high. Once again, let me get my little tool again. Are pretty high in this whole area down here, and they're pretty good up here as well. I'm going to be keeping an eye on these, and I suppose this area as well. I'm going to be keeping an eye on these ADMs. If these ADMs drop over the coming week, then that would suggest that industry and ratting has kind of ground to a halt. And then we will be looking at potentially Delve, as this is apparently where they're moving their industry and ratting to, and setting up shop there, and see if those ADMs start rising in those areas there. So that's going to be interesting to look out for. And that is kind of it's normally I'm not big on giving news that is hearsay from my point of view, but it does come from a pretty good source, and I do think there is some truth in there, but I can't be 100% certain. But if tests are moving out of Estoria, if we go back to our universe map, now Estoria being, let me bring up my pen again, being here, this leaves Immensia, Impasse, Fethobolis, which we're going to come on to next, and pretty much left out on their own there, because there's going to be no support for them whatsoever. So going on to Fethobolis, let me just make sure I've covered everything in Estoria. Oh yeah, one last thing with Estoria as well. Let me go back there, and let me go back into my iHubs. You can see up the top here that the system of DTX-8M, oh that was awful, let me do that again, DTX-8-M has been reinforced. Now this is a Keepstar system, and if you remember I talked about my soft border earlier. It looks like that Bastion are now wanting to push further into Estoria, and obviously if they flip an iHub there, then that's another Keepstar system, so that's worth noting. Right, so coming back to Fethobolis, let me go, there you go, the map's come up. So what we have here is we have already replaced, as you can see there, the grey in the middle, and we have Evictus down the bottom. So Evictus, as we know, they kind of lost their territory in Southern Catch. Already replaced her territory somewhere else. I think it was in Immensia, and I think that's gone as well. These guys are kind of being left out on their own. And in fact, do I have it? Yeah, I have it right here. There was a Fortizar that died. Now, it looks like it was anchoring, but I'm pretty certain you now need a core to anchor. So I don't know whether it was anchoring or whether it was just there with all the mods stripped out of it. But you can see Deepwater Hooligans killed this. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because Deepwater Hooligans have an iHub up here. Now, it's been reinforced. Now, if Deepwater Hooligans have got a structure here, I don't know if that's actually the case, but if they do, then they can project all the way down into Fethobolis. And as we now saw, if tests are moving out of Estoria, these guys are on their own. And, this creates big problems for, like I said, Eternal Requiem, already replaced, and Invictus. And it's going to be interesting to see what these guys do in the coming week, because I think in the next week we are going to see some activity in Fethobolis, even though it's been left alone for pretty much all of the war so far. Right, so does that cover Fethobolis? Yeah, okay. So now we're going to move on to another interesting one. We're going to move on to Aquarius. So, as you know, Aquarius has been primarily about Brave and Siberian Squad, and it looks like both sides have now kind of settled on their territory. So Siberian Squad have been in their same spot now for a good couple of weeks, and I don't know quite why they picked that constellation. If we actually go to the constellation map, you will see that is 11 systems in the constellation, which makes it really difficult to defend. On top of that, it's got a kind of couple of pipes, between sort of leading out from the main sort of hub in the middle. And I would not want to be able to do Intosis fighting on this particular constellation. It looks like a nightmare. But anyway, what we do have though is we have Brave, and Brave have kind of settled. Let me take the pink one. There we go. They've kind of settled in these three constellations. They're kind of thinking about this one as well by the looks of it, but it seems secondary to their intent at the moment. And in fact, if we actually look at the activity defense multiplier, there we go. You can see that Brave have started, kind of pushing up the ADMs quite hard in some of these systems. As you can see, these are still all at 1, so there's a long way to go. But this is what they really need to focus on now. There's another one there that's above 4. They really need to get all of these systems way above 4 into the 5s, and hopefully make one of these a capital system as well. Now, the one area that is of interest is W6V-VM. So that is this one right here that you can see is highlighted in orange. So that is one of the Goon Swarm Keepstar systems. And it got flipped last week. And obviously it does appear that the Imperium want to take this back. The fact they've reinforced it again, they kind of want to stop the doom clock from ticking on this. So, talking of doom clock, if you remember, I mentioned this last week. I'm going to bring up my pen again. We have F20Y, we have GOP, and we have W6V-VM, which are the three Keepstar systems in Aquarius. So for F20Y, I think we've got about 2 weeks left to go on the doom clock. I think GOP is 3 weeks, and W6V is about just under a month, so around the 30-day mark, maybe a little bit less than that. So those are kind of the main areas of focus for PAPI right now. They do seem very intent on the doom clock. That's very much where their strategy's gone again. And they've been fighting hard on making sure that they keep the iHubs in these systems. So I think that pretty much covers everything within Aquarius. So now we can move on to Delta. So let me clear that up again. We'll go to Universe and we'll go to Delta. So PAPI, if we go to iHubs, really focused in the last week on taking another constellation away from the Imperium and from Goonswarm in particular. And let me get my pen again. And it is this constellation up here. So this was actually, I believe, uncontested as well. So the Imperium let that be taken. And as you can see now, if I change my pen color, the Imperium are kind of left here. And even within this area, they're kind of just been pushed back into this. And these are the only areas now that Goonswarm actually owns SOV on. So they've kind of been pushed really far back. And they're going all in on the siege mentality here, with obviously the focus being on 1DQ1-A. Now, one of the things that's of note is that if you remember, there was a fight over the iHub in 8WA-Z6, and it didn't happen. It fell through with seconds to spare. It took so long for the Sino-Jammers to get killed that PAPI were unable to start reinforcing the iHub. But there was an Asbel in there, and that Asbel has now been destroyed. So once again, PAPI are back to square one in terms of their attempts to aggress into this constellation, as they no longer have any structures implanted in this kind of back pocket. And they really need to be able to establish themselves, at least flip one iHub and get at least one structure into this area in order to be able to try and aggress into 1DQ1. Then the last item of note is obviously M2-XFE. So I mentioned last week it was about 2 weeks, so now clearly we're just over a week, I think, for the M2-XFE doom clock to expire. So that means the iHub will reach the strategic index level 3. It would have been in place for 35 days. And at that point, PAPI can then, test in particular, can put in a Sino-Jammer, which means that Sinosaural beacons will not be able to be lit. And so therefore, no super capitals will be able to jump in if tests have their Sino-Jammer enabled. Now, that Sino-Jammer can be reinforced, in which case it gets disabled, but it's something that the Imperium forces will have to actively do pretty much all the time that they expect that the Sino-Jammer will be used by PAPI. But what it means is that we may see in just over a week an attempt at breaking out the last remaining Titans and other capitals that are trapped in the log-off in M2-XFE from the battle that happened all the way back in January, beginning of January. So that's been a while, and we're going to see where that plays out. And then finally, I'm just going to mention just very quickly, I mentioned last week that Fountain, that Fed Up, got themselves settled over here, and apparently nothing has happened. It is all still business as usual. And I'll be keeping an eye on that to see if French Connection decide to go into this area. And obviously we've got Init aren't really active in this region, even though they have loads of SOV. But as I said from Catch, they may decide to come back to Fountain, or they may go somewhere completely different. Who knows? All right, so I think that pretty much covers everything. Let me just double check. Yeah, so we're done. Hopefully you enjoyed that. As always, please like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications. Please join my Discord and join into the discussions there. They are definitely entertaining. And be sure to mention me in your Alliance Discord and Corp Discord. That is all from me. Thank you for watching. Until the next one. Bye.